Hello everyone, my name is JD from Studio 2105. Welcome back to MixStream Online. In today's age of digital audio and in-the-box mixing, do you still need an analog mixer? Find out my answer in this week's episode of Weekly Update Wednesday. If you're new to the channel, a warm welcome to you. And if you're a returning viewer or existing subscriber, thank you very much for being a part of this channel, okay? Do take a moment if you haven't already done so. Head on down and click on the subscribe button. All right, that will really help the channel out. And don't forget, click on the notification bell as well. So every time I put out a video, you'll be updated and you'll be notified, okay? Not to forget, a big shout out and a big thank you to all the patrons who help to support the channel financially. Now, if you want to do so, you can become a patron by signing up right with this website, okay? www.patreon.com/studio2105. Sign up today, you get special perks and benefits. For example, one-on-one tutorial mentoring sessions, behind the scenes content, discount codes, so much more, all starting from the low price of only $1 a month, okay? Right, so do check it out, okay? Head on to the Patreon website down below. Don't forget as well, do sign up for the email list. Head down to bit.ly/MixStreamOnline. Sign up and you get a bunch of free stuff, okay? You will get access to my personal snare drum library and also my reverb IR libraries. As I speak, right, the Direct Access 1.0 music production videos are online. So, right, if you want to check them out, okay, head on down to this playlist. Right, all of the videos is covering the workshop content of the Direct Access workshop that I organized and I had earlier a couple of months back, right? So for those who did not manage to attend it, right, because we had very limited space due to, well, first of all, due to space constraints and also social distancing constraints, this video, right, the workshop is all available for you to watch for free, okay, right here on this channel. Okay, you can also head on down to the MixStream Facebook community page. Right, check it out. All of the links are down in the description below. But best of all, again, if you want to be updated every time I put out all these new videos, right, become a subscriber, subscribe to the channel, okay? Right, so early on I posed a question, whether or not do you still need an analog mixer today? So here we go. Let's dive down to this week's featured question. With all my mixing being done in the box, is there any reason to have an actual mixer nowadays? As usual, I always have a short answer and a long answer. The short answer is no. Okay? Now, there has been a major shift, right, the past decades, right, 1 or 2 decades, into mixing ITB, right? This is mainly due to cost and access, okay? Right. It is very expensive to be able to rent a studio or let alone buy one, okay? Especially if it's a large format analog console, you know, such an SSL or an API or an Eve or something like that. Even world famous mixers, for example, Andrew Sheps and many others have already made the transition, right? They used to mix on large format analog consoles and many of them now even work, you know, in the box, ITB. When I was starting my studio back in 2005, right, moving on from a home studio, then, you know, a couple of years freelancing in Synchrosound. When I started to have this place, right, in my own place, my aim and my goal was, and basically my requirements, what I needed, right, was I needed a studio that could record bands live, right? This means that I needed multiple inputs, at least 16 or more. Okay, I need a way to have monitoring fallback for the singers and for the musicians. I need monitoring in the control room with the ability to switch between different speakers, multiple speakers. And not only did I need to have those 16 inputs, right? Talking about, you know, inputs when I'm recording. But having been trained and having, you know, kind of grown up in the sort of the transition between the analog into the digital world, I needed EQ, right? Going to those inputs, I personally think that, to me, to my ears at least, I think that EQing, right, before going into your interface, before you going into digital, somehow is superior. It somehow works better. It sounds a little bit better, especially when I'm recording drums and recording guitars. So I need a way to EQ, right, those inputs before it would go into my interface or converters. Also, because I previously worked in Synchro Sound, it's a big recording studio. It had like their own custom kind of a monitoring system. Like nowadays, like on stage, you have things like the Aviom, you have from the DBX and Behringer, all those, right? But back in the day, they already had a custom monitoring system. So it was really an indispensable way that I work, and I thought there was no way I needed to have this kind of system. I needed to be able to set up a system where, right, let's say a singer or a drummer, right, who's recording inside the live room, that they'll be able to, right, customize their headphone mix. Let's say if they want to hear their vocal louder, softer, the music louder, softer, right, I would needed a system where they could control it themselves. Okay, for me, there was no way, right, going back to just sending them a plain old stereo mix. So I was faced with two decisions, right? Two choices. Number one, I could, get like maybe 8 or more dedicated mic pre's, preferably with EQ. I need to get a sort of a talkback monitoring system. I need to get a speaker switching system, etc. Like all this gear. Now, all of that added up, right, could get pretty expensive. Or, right, my second choice was to get an analog console, perhaps maybe even a second-hand one, that can handle all of the above. And you can probably guess it, right? I went down the second path. Okay, because as I was starting out in 2005, it made so much more financial sense for me, for a new studio business like mine, to invest in an analog console, because with one device, one piece of gear, I could, right, fulfill all those requirements, right? Number of inputs, monitoring, etc. Okay, so I bought over, right? I'm not sure whether you can see. I'll show a camera here. I bought over this Allen & Heath GL2200, right? It's a multifunctional mixing console, right? It's primarily mainly meant to be used as a live sound console, because you can not only feed your main front of house, you could also send it and feed monitor wedges. You can send it feed monitor speakers, right? I got it from my friend and a fellow engineer as well, Nick Lee. So now, the fact that he gave me a sweet deal, right? It was a really good deal. It was a really well maintained console, fairly new at the time. And the fact that it was already sitting here inside this studio, inside this room, alright, it pretty much helped my decision lah. It gives me up to 32 inputs. It's a total of a 32 input mixing console. So the way I allocate it, I allocate 16 inputs for my recording channels, 8 inputs for my monitoring returns, right? That means, for example, right, things like my talkback, I send monitoring returns from my interface, from the click track, etc. Right, monitoring returns from my outboard mic pre's and all that. Another 8 inputs, right, in 4 stereo pairs. So those I can maybe patch in other stuff lah. I can patch in external sound sources. Now all of these channels, all of them have 3-band EQ, high pass filters, right, phase invert, and all that jazz. Okay, and there was also a subgroup section which allowed me to switch between different pairs of speakers, right? Then there's 6 aux outputs as well, which allowed me to set up a customizable artist monitoring system, right? I use that in conjunction with a small compact mixer, right? So it allows artists to also have their customizable headphone mix and so much more. Plus the fact that each channel had a direct output made it perfect for integrating with my DAW, right? As I could just feed, right, directly from the channels. After it's gone through the preamp section, the high pass filter, the EQ, I could EQ everything, set the gain, and just feed it directly into my interface and converters, right? Now, in order to sort of achieve the same degree of flexibility, right, would have involved investing in numerous pieces of outboard gear, and I calculated it. I did the budgeting for it. It would end up costing me 3-4 times more, right? So much. So it was just basically a no-brainer, right? New studio, it just started up, it's a new business, to go with an analog console. Now, a great plus factor as well, right, of having an analog console is the workflow, right? The quick workflow of having actual physical faders, right, knobs and switches. Like, trust me, it's much faster to plug in, right, a sound source into a console, route the audio to headphones or to speakers or to a certain input, right, on an analog board and analog console than having to sort of navigate all that, right, inside the menus with the keyboard and mouse. Trust me, it's much faster. Having said that, now back to your question, if you are going to be primarily just doing mixing, then probably you don't really need something like what I have, okay? Right? If you're primarily mainly just doing mixing instead of a analog mixer, you would probably most likely benefit from a control surface instead, okay? Right? There are those from manufacturers, Resonus, Behringer, Avid, Steinberg, Softtube, and now the latest and the most advanced ones, right? From Slate Audio, they have the Raven touchscreen controllers, okay? So now, having a control surface will bring the speed and the tactile response, right, of working with an analog workflow, but I would say probably without the costs of maintenance, right? Analog consoles do need maintaining, right? So you avoid the cost and also the complexity of an analog setup, right? So if you're just mixing, right, a control surface, even something, you can go for something as basic as something like a fader port, which is just like one fader, and you can switch between the channels, or something bigger with 8, 16 or even more, right, faders for controllers. That would be a great investment instead, right? You can control not your fader levels, your aux sends, your knobs, your automation, all that you can dial in, and you can control it via that device. Many of those manufacturers also nowadays make these hybrid digital mixers. That's also something you can consider. Now, all these hybrid mixers, well, they can serve as not only do they serve as an audio interface, they also serve as a DAW controller, a control surface. Some of them, you can use them as a standalone mobile recorder, right? You can just take it to a band rehearsal and just hook it up and just record a band on location live. And not only that, right, they perform all the functions of a traditional analog console, but everything is built into a single digital mixer, into one single device. Some of them, right, even dispense with the physical surface itself, right, the physical control surface, and it's, they just come with the interface, the outboard box, right, where you just plug in your microphones. And the control surfaces are all done via mobile devices. You usually a tablet or something like that. Fantastic. That's how how far technology has gone, right? So now, in the end, it boils down to a couple of things. You need to really sit down and identify your exact requirements, right? Do you need it for recording? Do you need EQ? Do you need all the ability to route and send, right, auxiliaries? Do you need to be able to patch in multiple external sources, right? You get musicians who come in and bring their own gear, a lot of stuff, and then you need to patch things in and out. What is your budget? You need to determine how much money you're willing to spend, budget, and look at the different options. For example, I calculated if I went with option A, this was how much it would cost. Option B, this was how much it would cost. Then, think about it, see which made financial sense, which one was a better investment, which one would give a better value for money, and go for that, okay? Now, and lastly, okay, when you make all these decisions, you make your decisions based on your needs. Remember, that's very important, right? Not your wants. Okay, it's nice, right? It's nice to have a fancy, big analog console. It's impressive to the clients, I must admit, okay? When they look at it, when you have a console like this, they think that you must be a legit, you must be a serious studio, and you must be a serious audio engineer. Yes, it's nice and big, right? But you have to bear in mind as well, right? The cost of maintaining a console, whether is it actually worth it, whether do you actually need, right, all those channels and all those physical faders. Again, right? If you don't need it, analyze, weigh the pros and cons. Consider whether this fulfills and meets your needs, and it's not just merely something that you want. Okay, right? You don't want to end up with an expensive paperweight, a very heavy piece of equipment that's sitting on your desk, okay, taking up all that space. Now, ultimately, you may be just a producer working on a laptop and a small little portable interface. I still think, right? I personally still think that having maybe a small little compact mixer, right? Those small format types, will still be beneficial. I think it's still good to invest in at least one, because it allows you to quickly, very quickly connect, patch other equipments, maybe patch microphones and stuff like that, headphones to different speakers, and having like actual faders and knobs. Again, it's more workflow. It's so much faster to control and tweak the volume of your speakers if you're listening to speakers or headphones by twisting and dialing a knob, instead of going inside your DAW and drag and drop, click with your keyboard and mouse and all that. Okay, so again, your mileage may vary. Right, I'm just sharing my opinions with you. Right? You always have to think about, weigh your pros and cons and decide what works best for you lah. Okay. Now, if you want to sort of check out a video which I did of how I will integrate an analog mixer with an audio interface, do check it out. I have this video which I did a couple of weeks ago, I think. Right, so it should be floating around there. Click on it; it will take you to that video. Right, do check it out. Right. Hope that helps and hope that answers your question. Once again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found the video useful and informative. If you do, please do leave a like. All right, it would really help the channel out. Do share this with your friends and your fellow audio and music enthusiasts. And if you haven't done so, okay, remember, click on the subscribe button, become a subscriber today. All right, okay. Do consider as well signing up as a patron. Once again, the website is www.patreon.com/studio2105. Okay, sign up, become a patron today. Right, that's all for this week's video. Thank you again. Right, stay safe, take care of yourself, practice your social distancing, wash your hands, take care of your hygiene, right, and all that. Right, till next time, happy recording and mixing. Goodbye.